Okay, we've all been there. You're taking a quiz, you think you've got it down, and then you get a question wrong that just leaves you scratching your head. It's super frustrating, I know. But don't worry, we're about to solve this exact puzzle together. And by the end, it's all going to make perfect sense.
All right, here it is. This is the question that's been causing all the trouble. And, it's actually a fantastic question. It's not just asking you to remember a fact, it wants you to understand how things work. And the entire answer, the whole thing, really comes down to one little molecule, ATP. So you picked movement of urine through the ureters. And honestly, I can see why. It sounds plausible. But the correct answer is reabsorption of glucose and amino acids. So the goal here isn't just to tell you the right answer. It's to dig in and see why that's the right answer and why the other one is off the mark. Let's break it down. To solve this, we first need to go to the scene of the crime, so to speak. This whole process is happening inside your kidneys, and more specifically, inside millions of tiny little workhorses called nephrons. So let's take a quick tour. The best way to think about your kidney is as this incredibly sophisticated purification plant. It's not just a simple filter. It's constantly sampling your blood, making complex decisions about what to keep, what to throw out, and what to recycle. All of this is to maintain that perfect internal balance we call homeostasis. And to get this massive job done, each of your kidneys is packed with over 1 million of these microscopic engines, the nephrons. Every single one is its own little purification assembly line, and they are all working around the clock, 24/7, to keep you going. Okay, so we've got the location down. The other major piece of this puzzle is ATP. To put it simply, ATP is like cash for your cells. If a cell needs to do any kind of real work, and I mean any work, it has to spend some ATP. It's the body's energy currency. And the single most important job that requires a ton of ATP in the nephron is something called active transport. This is basically when a cell has to forcefully grab molecules and move them where they don't naturally want to go, like pulling something from an area where there's not much of it to an area where there's already a lot. That takes work. It costs energy. Here's a really simple way to picture it. Some things are passive, right? They're like coasting down a hill on a bike. It just happens, no effort needed. But active transport, that's like trying to push a giant boulder up a hill. It is not going to happen unless you spend some serious energy. And for a cell, that energy is ATP. So now we have our two key elements, the location, which is the nephron, and the energy source, ATP. So let's do a little energy audit. We're going to follow the 3 main steps of urine formation and see exactly where the cell has to open its wallet and spend that precious ATP. Okay, step 1 is filtration. This is where your blood pressure literally forces water and a bunch of small stuff out of your blood. It's a physical process, kind of like making coffee with a French press. The key thing to realize here is that the cells themselves aren't doing any work. It's all pressure. So the ATP cost? Absolutely zero. All right, next up, reabsorption. Now, that first filtering step was a little crude. It got rid of waste, but it also tossed out a lot of good stuff, like all of your glucose and amino acids. Your body needs that back, and it needs it back now. So this is where the nephron cells have to spend a massive amount of ATP to actively grab those good molecules and pull them back into the blood. This is that pushing the boulder uphill work we were talking about. And finally, there's secretion. You can think of this as the last quality control check. The cells of the nephron spend even more ATP to actively hunt down any leftover waste products in the blood and forcefully dump them into the urine. It's another energy-intensive process to make sure your blood is as clean as it can be. Okay, our energy audit is complete. We've followed the process from start to finish, and we've tracked all the energy expenses. Now it's time to put all the clues together and solve this thing once and for all. And here are the results, laid out, plain and simple. Just look at this chart. Filtration? No ATP required. That's just pressure. But reabsorption and secretion both get a big fat yes. They are completely dependent on ATP to power that active transport. So if you take away the ATP, those two processes grind to a screeching halt. And if you want one last really powerful piece of evidence, just ask yourself this question. Why are the cells in the part of the nephron that does all the reabsorption absolutely packed with mitochondria, the power plants of the cell? Well, it's because they have an incredibly demanding, high-energy job to do. They're churning out all the ATP needed for active transport. So the answer becomes crystal clear. If a drug blocks ATP, it shuts down active transport. And that means the reabsorption of all that good stuff, like glucose and amino acids, simply can't happen. Now let's look back at your answer. The movement of urine through the ureters happens because of muscle contractions, a process called peristalsis. And while those muscle cells do use ATP, that's happening in a totally different place. A drug that blocks ATP inside the nephron won't directly affect the muscles way down in the ureters.
So we've solved the quiz question, awesome, but let's just zoom out for a second and ask a bigger question. Why does the body go through all this trouble? Why spend so much energy on this whole filtering and reabsorbing thing?
Well, this massive energy bill isn't a design flaw, it's actually a brilliant strategy. By just filtering almost everything first and then spending energy to carefully pull back only what it needs, the body gets incredibly precise control over its internal chemistry. That's homeostasis in action. And it's why keeping your kidneys working well is so vital for your entire body's health.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. Your kidneys use a staggering amount of energy, second only to your constantly beating heart. So what does that tell you about the real price of balance? It tells us that the stable, healthy state we take for granted isn't just a default setting. It's something that is actively, constantly, and very expensively maintained by our bodies, one molecule of ATP at a time.